Hi, folks. Cliff from Talking Pondo here. I want to give you a quick warning about the upcoming episode. We do talk about the movie in quite a bit of detail, plot points, and so on, so there will be spoilers. And just fair warning, there is some adult language every now and then, so I just want to give you a heads up on that. Also, you can watch our latest film trilogy, Writing Frenzy, Revenge of Zoe, and The Love Song of William H. Shaw. Those are available on Amazon Prime, Tubi, Fossum, Hoopla, and Zumo. So get out there and give them a watch. I hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks for listening. I don't know. Did you have any scores that you thought you might wanted to change or thought were too high or too low?
Well, I was probably, the Lighthouse was still kind of all right, but I was probably a little too harsh on the Pope's Exorcist. That's probably at least 2.
Come on, man. That's fucking Russell digging. Hey, that's better for two. Beep, beep. Come on.
1.5. That's pretty harsh, especially
it was
if I'm
pretty
giving
harsh.
Hell Night a 2 the same week. That doesn't make any sense. Welcome to Season 3 of Talking Pondo. Talking Pondo is a podcast where Cliff and Marty give each other a film to watch and talk about them in detail. Some episodes will include a special guest.
All right, Marty, that's us. We're back.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
Yeah.
Season 3.
Season 3. Episode 74 overall.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. You had our first Talking with Guests last week, and now we're back with the beginning of Cliff and Marty talking about movies.
Which we think, honestly may become, depending on how the guests pan out, less and less scarce. We'll see, but we sure like talking to those guests. We like getting that opinion. That third wheel comes in and makes for a great discussion.
Yeah, so you'll see the ratio of how that goes. Like we used to have the Making Pondo, and now we'll have Talking with Guests, and those will be just a little more frequent.
Yep. Well, it depends on the
here. So.
Depends on the listener, right? You guys, listener, you let us know. Hit us up on the socials. Tell us how you think, what you think. Text us, whatever you can. I'm sure there's a text us link in whatever device right now that you're listening to.
Oh,
yeah. Hit it and say, whatever you need to.
We have all that stuff, and we never say anything about it.
We don't. So I just said that. Then, yeah, like and subscribe, and hit that button.
You can support the show too.
Yeah,
we have a link set up currently through Buzzsprout.
We do. Yes. And eventually we'll probably be getting a Patreon at some point. But either way, we'd like for the podcast to at least pay for itself. We're not trying to get rich, but, it'd be nice to be able to have the maintenance fees supported. And they're not much, honestly. You just need a few dollars, literally just minimum dollars from $1 from you. $1.
Our movies are out.
They are. Oh, and actually that would help greatly too. I mean, if you don't want to give us $1, go watch our movie. That'll give us $1 for sure.
Yeah. Links in the show notes to watch Love Song of William H. Shaw, Revenge of Zoe, and even Writing Frenzy on a streaming platform with commercials right now that doesn't cost you anything but your time.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a library card? You can watch all 3 of those movies.
I thought you were quoting Nice Dreams for a second there. You got a library card?
You got a library card?
We haven't covered that movie yet, but what movies are we covering today? I mean, we are going to have our season recap of season 2, but let's tease them with the titles that we told them last week or 2 weeks ago that they already know anyway. A classic over-explaining on my part to start the season.
So it's Victor Victoria and Always. So we've got a little Blake Edwards, a little Steven Spielberg coming right at you.
You're going right back to the 80s, where it all began, folks.
That's right. That's where we're comfortable. That's where we're comfortable. That's where we hide.
There's the 70s as well, but it's really about the 80s,
So I have a thought. I've been doing a bit of curating. You like to talk about this 80s list that I have. and I've been doing some curating and looking, and you mentioned in particular a documentary you'd watched about 82.
Oh yeah.
And I've started looking and going and curating my collection a bit, moving things around, and thought, really 82 to 86 is kind of this perfect 4 years of filmmaking. It's so good. It's so good. You have just the right amount of like really well funded indies that do just well enough that they either become cult classics or they achieve a B status just above it to become maybe just an A minor, and the audiences love them. And then you get to 87 where it's like Mannequin, and you're like, there you go. And it just sort of starts to find. Now there are still great movies in 87 to 89, but this 82 to 86 is so, when you talk about the 80s and you talk about that type of thing, you are probably referencing something within that time frame. And it's a beautiful, beautiful section of film and filmmaking that I'm not sure I can really point to anywhere else within that. I'm sure there's others. I just haven't. Somewhere in the 90s, I think, probably.
Probably.
Maybe with the Linklater, Robert Rodriguez, Kevin Smith, Tarantino stuff right in there.
Yeah.
But boy,
Indie start
God,
changing
my
mainstream.
Lord, 82 to 86 is just ridiculous.
It really is.
It's unbelievable.
The 1987 delineation line have often said RoboCop, right? It's like now we've switched from 87 to about 94. It's like this whole other weird thing.
Yes. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, and we've gone through it. And I bring that up because Victor Victoria is right at the beginning of 82.
Yeah, it's right there.
It's right there.
Same year as Tootsie. A year after Zorro,
Yep.
So
a year after Zorro the Gay Blade.
All right there. Mm-hmm.
And the same year as First Blood, Gandhi, 48 Hours, Flashdance, or not Flashdance, sorry, 48 Hours, Sophie's Choice, Gandhi, The Dark Crystal, 48 Hours, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, An Officer and a Gentleman, Blade Runner. Tron. That year alone is ridiculous. But then you move into 83 and it's Blue Thunder, Flashdance, War Games, Risky Business, Mr. Mom, The Right Stuff, Footloose, Splash, Blood Simple, Romancing the Stone. Here you go into 84, 16 Candles, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Purple Rain. It's the most ridiculous, right into Red Dawn, Amadeus, Vision Quest, Breakfast Club. It moved.
Ghostbusters,
Gremlins, Goonies, Silverado, Weird Science Explorers, Better Off Dead, To Live and Die in L.A., Ferris Bueller, Top Gun, Crocodile Dundee, or Crossroads.
It's insane.
It's an exhaustive list of top tier movies, not only from a pop culture kind of standpoint, but from just an excellent filmmaking standpoint.
Yeah.
Standalone films that don't have that don't rely on anything else, complete ideas of their own. Anyway, I'm talking way too much about this, but anyway, something I took from when we were watching and looking at Victor Victoria in particular. I thought, right. 82. Wow.
Because the other movie is from 89.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was right around, well, let me see here. That movie came out in December of 89. So they were trying to do Oscar bait on that, which means I had to think about it pretty hard because it's such a long time ago. In the 80s, I went to the movies a lot, but I always went with the sibling or a parent. Mm-hmm. But then in the 90s, we were reviewing movies for the newspaper, and then we decided, fuck it, let's go to the movies. It was kind of like our own little 4:30 movie thing like that. Mm-hmm. We'll be talking about in a few weeks, or who knows when that movie will come up. Probably sooner than later, but we went and saw that first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which came out like 2 weeks before we started even doing the TV show, which is funny. I looked it up. So it's like, then it was like this different world of I can go to the movies and I don't have to have my parents there. And so the next thing I know, going to the movies with friends was happening all the time. And I'm pretty certain that always happened during probably a matinee showing before it was
Yeah.
on its way out. Because movies, we've talked about this before, always came out in December, and you could be like, I'm going to wait till March or April to go see it. And it
Yeah.
would still be there in some form or
Yeah.
another, be on a
January or
dollar
February for
theater
sure.
or.
Yeah.
And so we probably caught it then because I have this memory of seeing it at Elcon, but I
Did we
don't think we
review it?
paid
Did we review it for the
full
paper?
price. Probably, and it would have been hilarious if I would have taken the
That
time to
makes
try to
sense.
dig out the old review.
I probably demanded to because it was a Spielberg movie, and I'm a huge fan of Spielberg.
But
Spielberg, for the audience, is my favorite director of all time.
mhm.
I think he is the god of cinema, and I won't hear if any backlash on it. But anyway,
But talking about thoughts on movies in general, that's the one
mm,
that this week was like. This was the one in the never-ending stream of go see pretty much everything that came out,
yeah,
and
I,
this was one of them. And
I,
it's funny to think that we actually did see Always in the theater.
yeah, it's one of the things I think that's kind of it wasn't as
Went into it
expensive.
blind. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, it wasn't as expensive to go see a film back in the day as it is now,
We
right?
must have
Like
paid what,
it's
$2.50 or something,
250,
probably.
$3, maybe four at the most, you know, and yeah, the money was different back then too, but at the same time it seems $10, $12 to see a film and that type of things. But you know, they do have matinee prices. You can get it on some. I will say, Flicks Brewhouse, where I live, does a great job of giving some good discounts and stuff. But,
And it is funny to think that we met in late '88,
mm-hmm.
and then we started doing the TV show in early '90. And
Yeah,
so all during '89, we were both going to
just watching. Yeah,
movies,
we were just
but
watching
nobody
movies and
ever
reviewing
had
them
the
for the
idea
paper.
of let's go see a fucking movie. I guess we were just more about going to the comic shop and
Yeah,
RPGs at the time. And then
yeah,
once we realized movie theater's an option as well, we
mm-hmm.
were seeing everything from Predator 2 to fucking
Yeah. I remember. I
sibling
remember
rivalry.
discovering. I remember discovering, in particular, discovering that the U of A's had a cinema,
Oh
had a student
yeah, yeah.
union cinema, and catching like, I mean, we went there to catch. I mean, catch
Then we
things.
started seeing old movies. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, okay, well, that's our first. That's my second view of Raiders on 35 millimeter
Mm-hmm.
was there.
A
That's
Blade
my first
Runner.
viewing of Blade Runner. That's my first viewing of The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, Her Lover,
Oh yeah.
where
Heavy
somebody
Metal.
threw it in the back and everybody all you could smell was puke while this kid is screaming and Heavy Metal.
Akira.
It was Akira. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's where you and I got a lot of early exposure to like different cinema. Well, I mean, especially that and this guy named Justice Barachuk, who seemed to have an unlimited treasure trove of like John Waters and this and that. Like, here, watch this and this. And we're just like, what the fuck? Oh,
Yeah.
have you seen this? Holy shit.
He must have known
You
the
know.
good video stores somewhere or something.
And then amongst you and I, tape swapping all the VHS tapes we had, it was a crazy year of language as far as like building a lexicon, a solid kind of ground, which is what we've been doing for the next 30 years.
Mm-hmm. And I suspect a lot of that happened during '89. It was just watching videotapes, and then we watched everything
Yeah.
that we had on tape
Oh,
and
dude,
everything that was at the
everything.
store. And then we
Everything.
went to the theaters
Yep.
themselves.
Yep. And it started with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I still remember those kids in the movie theater because we went to like a afternoon. I think it was a matinee because it was cheap, an afternoon
Mm-hmm.
showing. And we were with a bunch of kids and their moms, and you could hear like when you could see the shadow of Splinter running through the sewer, and you hear the kids go, "Oh, Splinter!" It's like, oh my god, what in the fuck? I'm 17 years old. What am I doing here? It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's that gap of like, I'm still interested in seeing this, but the whole audience is
Yes.
nothing but kids. That was like Ernest Saves Christmas. I went to like at 15 and
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by kids just destroying the theater with candy and
Yeah.
popcorn and nachos.
Yeah. And I'll say this, fair warning to those out there, but people, grown ass men who go to like kids movies in the afternoon by themselves with a bunch of kids around, that sticks out like a sore thumb to people who run movie theaters.
Right.
It really
At
does.
least we were minors still at the time.
It's
right?
unfortunate because you should be able to go and enjoy the Monsters Inc. movie with, or the Moana 2 with everybody else, but it's not how society works anymore, guys. Anyway. So what are our movies this year? It was Victor Victoria, and it was
Always, but this being the beginning of the season, we kicked off season 2 by talking about the films we watched in season 1, and maybe reevaluating a few of them or deciding which ones were the standouts. And wow, it feels like just yesterday we recorded Get Out and Scream. I mean, that really feels like a month ago or so. And
I can't believe we. First off, I want to say Get Out. I was shocked you gave Get Out such a low score. You gave it an average 2.5 out of 5. But I'm glad you watched it and you did seem to enjoy it. Scream's an obvious classic, but I will say that the next episode, the rewatch of Texas Chainsaw for me was really for me was like, oh, okay. I haven't seen this in a very long time, and I'd seen it on some murky, bad SLP 2-hour transfer VHS tape, which probably some VHS fan would just be like, that's the way to watch it. And it's like, no, it isn't. Watch the nice Blu-ray copy where you can see the gorgeous, clear footage that it's all these beautiful pans and all these walking shots they've got.
Yeah, the DP wants you to watch it that way, right?
Yeah, it's really great. Anyway, I don't know. Did you have any scores that you thought you might wanted to change or thought were too high or too low?
Well, I was probably, The Lighthouse was still kind of all right, but I was probably a little too harsh on The Pope's Exorcist. That's probably at least 2.
Come on, man. That's fucking Russell digging. Hey, that's better for 2. Beep, beep. Come on.
1.5. That's pretty harsh, especially if I'm giving Hell Night a 2 the same week. That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, that's
Hell
so
Night
good.
Clearly being the 1.5
So I'll say the same thing about Hell. I gave Hell Night a 1. and I think that was probably I think it was a little harsh, but I don't think it was too hard. I would probably maybe go like a 1.5 maybe, but I don't think but still
But that's not what you're coming to it for. It's like criticizing a later film in the season, Shanghai Noon, for not having a good plot,
Exactly. I can see why people like it to a certain extent, I guess is what I'm saying.
I actually made you watch a Charlie Brown movie that you seem to enjoy.
I quite enjoyed that.
A fun one.
I loved how it went psychedelic in the middle of it. Just like, hey,
right.
Just breaks off into psychedelic visuals. I'm like, Charlie Brown, yeah, all right.
Which was the time.
And then we had I think Drew was our first talking guest.
He was the inaugural, kicking it off. We had 2 good ones with him. The Buckaroo Banzai and Escape from New York. I enjoy both the movies. Strangely enough, I gave Buckaroo Banzai a higher rating than Escape from New York that week. Maybe I appreciated the swings of the fence a little more. They're both awesome, though.
I don't like Banzai at all. I never have. It's one of those. It feels like we've talked about 81 Neighbors. I'm sorry, 1941 Neighbors. Coke movie.
Oh yeah, we'll be talking about that in a little bit.
Feels like a Coke movie. So not for me. Adam's Family Values was hilarious though.
Yeah, that's always good. Our holiday picks were right on for that, and with the planes, trains, and the. And I almost wish Axel F was a little bit more of a Coke movie. I would have probably appreciated that one a little more. I'm probably sticking to my 1.5. But see, I'm also judging it too much on
you're being too mean.
It is, but then
what did you give 3? What did you give Beverly Hills Cop 3?
Well, you'd have to make me watch that again to figure out what that one is. I haven't seen that in over 30 years.
But
I didn't like it.
I haven't seen 3 in a long time, but I refuse to believe that Axel F is worse than 3. Because 3 was pretty freaking
3 was
terrible.
pretty bad, but I wonder if it actually was
And if
better.
I'm going to give Road Games,
Oh God.
a 1.5, or I'm going to give Hell Knight a 1, and I'm going to give I'm probably going to give Beverly Hills Cop 3 a 1.5, then I can't give Axel F a 1.5 because I thought it was funnier, it looked better, it worked better. I remember you had a massive problem with the driving blue screen.
Yeah, it was the driving ruined
You
a lot of
absolutely
it.
hated it. Yeah.
So I went really low for the driving, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we had
Yeah.
more guests, and then we did like the pilot episode of talking, I guess you would say, after the proof of concept, where we had Rob Maynard talking about Barbarella and Faculty.
That was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. I kind of middle of the road of both movies, a little bit above average on both movies.
Yeah, I still kind of feel the same with my rating on those. They're,
Same. Yeah.
not everything is a 3.5.
I love that Rob seemed frustrated with our vague scoring system, and I reserve the right to be vague about my scoring system to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So there, yeah.
Because
Then we went into the holidays.
Yeah, and then it wasn't vague anymore. It was really like, I don't like this.
You gave Scrooged a 1, dude.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's not. It's good.
Well, you can watch it. I'm not going to begrudge you that.
But you didn't like Fat Man either.
I enjoyed that one, but
I thought that
it
was
wasn't like
I thought that was a
amazing or anything.
spin on Santa Claus. I really did. Kind of along that sort of what's the one with David Harbour that we watched too?
Violent Night. That was
Violent
fun.
Night. Yeah.
Fat Man might be like a 2.5. 2 is
Yeah.
a little low on that one.
I hear you. Go and My Chauffeur I think we were pretty spot on with those.
Well, it's funny about
Poseidon Adventure.
I gave that a 2.5. That's probably like a 3 or a 3.5 just for what it does. I've overlooking moments in that one.
I would agree with you. I think it's a 3. I think it gets swallowed up in a lot of the other disaster movies of the 70s, but for the most part, it really stands out. I've heard Airport 76 does too, but I haven't seen it in a long time. But once they got to Towering Inferno and Earthquake and all this other shit, it just got so silly. I mean, shit, even Tommy Lee Jones did one in the 90s called Volcano, where they literally were just like, put up all the concrete blocks and we'll redirect the lava flow and that type of stuff.
Deep Rising.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the other? There was 2 like volcano movies that year.
Deep Rising was I think Deep Rising, maybe it was. Am I thinking of Deep Star 6? That was the kind of like the Weird Abyss ripoff. I think you're right. I think it's Deep Rising. Yeah.
Maybe that might be a movie about the ocean, though. So write in and tell us that we don't know what we're talking about. So I can't keep everything straight.
Hey, everything's from memory. We're not Googling anything right now, just so you know.
I'm still probably middle of the road on Go. I enjoy it, but it's not something I'm watching constantly. But it is a marker of that 1999. That's for certain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, My Chauffeur is just a personal favorite.
Yeah.
I found Fandango for the first 2/3 of that movie to be really something special, and you absolutely hated it. Which I found if you did really hilarious.
If you did just make it the short film it originally was, I probably would have liked that more. The stretching it out, I think we both ended up agreeing the flying at the end really doesn't do it any favors.
Yeah, no, very much so.
Or the Tom Sawyer paint the fence ending. Wouldn't it be cool if somebody put on a wedding right now?
I kind of like how that went. I kind of liked it, but it was me. But then we went to Before Sunrise, Night of the Hunter, and we flip flopped on those scores almost perfectly. I gave Night of the Hunter a 4. You gave Night of the Hunter a 2.
That seems weird. I should give that at least a 3.
I would think. I think Before Sunrise deserves a 2. I think I was being pretty harsh with a 1.5.
You were reacting to my reaction to Night of the Hunter. Oh yeah, well this movie sucks.
Yeah,
Well, that
yeah.
doesn't affect me. It affects the movie.
I think Before Sunrise overall is look. That whole trilogy, I'm not going to watch much. I mean, it's not something I'm going to put on,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not terribly made. You know what I mean? It's not Hell Night. So I think 1.5 was pretty sharp. I'd say probably 2.5 for Before Sunrise. Just right middle of the road. Just if you
Mm-hmm.
like this, great. If you don't, great.
Right.
I think that's fair. But then we get to fucking Puffy and get him to the Greek and then the fucking Animal
Oh
Factory.
yeah, Animal Factory, a movie I forgot we even watched.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all right, but it's just one of those. It's like, oh shit, we've done so many episodes. I forgot that I had talked about that movie. I'm the
Yep.
one who even brought it up. Like, Get
Yep.
Him to the Greek. I still say that's the first movie we watched that you can skip. But if you do watch it, it's okay because
I think it's funny.
yeah, it exists in a world where it's like sitcom universe, and normal rules don't apply in
Yeah,
sitcom
you can't.
universe. So
Yeah,
don't
you.
be so harsh when you watch a comedy that's old and say it's cringy because
Yeah,
it exists in sitcom world. It doesn't exist in real life. You're missing the context.
yeah. You're not going to be able to watch The Hangover or some of these other movies like that.
There's
American
even
Pie,
elements of today's movies that
Porky's. You're not gonna be able to watch that stuff if you put it into a try to if you try to bring your harsh moralistic whatever to it. You're gonna have to suspend your disbelief and just watch it and kind of laugh at what's funny.
yeah,
And
not
some people don't find that stuff funny, and that's
they
fine.
don't watch it. Yeah,
You know? Yeah.
it is meant to be a comedy. It's not everything is drama. Not everything has to be. If every character was highly moralistic, everything would be really boring movie wise. You need good villains. Come on now.
Well, and then we jump to Ghost Dog Precinct 13.
Ooh, now we're getting some really good movies here. Ghost Dog is one of the best movies we watched of the season, I'd say.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I still enjoy that Assault on Precinct 13. I'd probably
Oh,
get that
it's
at least
great.
a 3. I don't know why I did two
I,
and a half. That's too
I gave it
low.
a 3. I think it's great. I think it's it's limited by its budget and it's not really trying to do much. But what it does is a lot of fun, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
great movie. I'd watch that anytime. Put it on. Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead. But Ghost Dog, like you said, that's something special. That's in my opinion, it's probably one of Jarmusch's top films, and I've always loved it since I saw it, and I was. It's one of those movies every now and then where I'm worried that when I give it to you because I really want you to like it, but I can never tell sometimes what you're gonna like. And I, it's like you came back and you were like, oh man, I'm so glad I watched the movie. It's like fuck yes,
Yeah, it was after weeks of just like sludge.
yes, yeah,
I was like,
finally
eh,
nailed
eh,
it.
eh, eh, eh. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of keep the high quality streak up for a while here. We're going episode by episode here, but
Yeah,
uh,
Queen, Friday the 13th, Sorcerer, Joyride.
yeah, I seem to like Friday the 13th Part 1 more than anybody else did. Jim has an affinity for it as well. But
I was right in the middle of the road with it. I like 2 a lot better. But you know what? Sorcerer for me is the one that I'm actually going to ask to bump up because I'm going to go 4 on that.
yeah, it probably deserves a 4 at least, too. But
I
these are,
keep
the initial ratings of that week, but in reflection,
I
yeah.
keep thinking about it and I'm like,
And update your letterbox page to 4.
yeah, that 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 shot of Roy Schneider walking with the dynamite and handing it off and walking past and
Mm-hmm.
collapsing
It's on the waterfront.
only to be shot in the next scene, we think, from the sounds of it. It's amazing. And
Can't
Whiplash
argue.
was
Oh,
Whiplash. Go ahead, sorry.
what you can't. Well, it's true. You can't argue with Whiplash. You can't argue with African Queen.
No,
These are
no, those are all just solid 4s, 4.5. I mean,
solid.
we can argue about why didn't you give it that extra half? We could, but they're obviously recognized as anything 4 and 3.5, 4 and above is going to be recognized as something pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that which then we get to this Before Sunset because you're determined I'm going to watch this trilogy. And again, for me, right in the middle. Some interesting walk and talk, some interesting things done, but also I remember having some trouble with the lighting and some of the weird things that the movie was doing. But then Dinner in America hits, and that's
Oh,
I think your first. I think other than Planes, Trains, that's your first 5-star.
Yeah, that's one of the best movies of the season, I think. Definitely right up there with Ghost Dog and the obvious Planes, Trains.
Yeah,
I'm
gonna
Planes,
bump.
Trains, and African Queen. They're almost like in their own class of just classic,
Yeah, I'm gonna bump to 4.5 also. I'm gonna probably give very rare 5 stars on this because those are the reserved for like the very but 4.5 is that next level down where it's like it's almost fucking perfect. And Dinner in America is I watched it with Anissa, and it was the same thing we were talking about. For the first 20 minutes, she's just like, dude, what the fuck? And then that scene happens where she figures out the connection between the two of them, and she started laughing hysterically, and we were off and running.
And, that happens in one of our movies today we're going to be talking about. Well, it does its own version of here's this story, here's this story, and then they collide about 15 minutes in, and then the movie really starts.
No, you're right. But for me, Dinner America 4.5. It's just great.
It's so good.
Yeah. Then we went to Dr. No, Up in Smoke, also agreeing completely. Heart Like a Wheel, Friday, that was an interesting one, kind of just for I wanted to see what you thought of Heart Like a Wheel. There aren't a lot of female drag racers out there, so I was curious what you'd think. Yeah, Shining and Changeling.
Talking about classics.
Yeah. I liked the Changeling, I think, a little bit more than you did. You gave it 2.5. I gave it 3.5, but still pretty good. You didn't really seem to like Tootsie much.
No, Tootsie's better than Zorro, but today's movie's way better than both of them. And it's funny because they come out in the same time period. But I was harsh on Tootsie. It's probably at least a 2, but for me, it's just so fucking boring. There's something that just happened after all this time where it's just, I don't know. Maybe if I watched it again, I might feel completely differently. The music montages were killing me too. That happens sometimes. You play the same song 5 times.
Yeah. Go Tootsie, go. Boom, 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 boom.
No, it's not so much that one. It was the schmaltzy one that was on the radio a lot.
Something's telling me it might be you.
Ooh, ouch.
All of my life.
Painful.
Wow. I just can't believe I just plucked that out of nowhere perfectly. Pretty proud of that. So anyway, moving on, we had Badass, which we both agree is pretty awesome. And then you maybe watch SOB.
Yeah, continuing the trilogy here.
Yeah, and I'm not getting these Blake Edwards movies. They're not doing it for me at all.
Well, that's what the experiment was. We watch 10 and SOB, and then we watch the one that people seem to like.
I would like to bump up my score on SOB to like a 2.5, maybe. I would say it's a 3, but I do. What's his name? Robert
Preston. Yeah,
Preston. Man, I like his character in that, and I especially like him in the movie we're about to fucking talk about. And I realized what a kind of a, and it's of course it's fucking Centauri from The Last Starfighter. So this was my G. This guy's been my G forever. Yeah. But anyways, moving into Rush Hour, that was great.
Yeah, that's another movie that
I could not believe you hadn't seen that.
And I've already forgot I watched it. I mean, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah, it's Jackie Chan and it's Chris Tucker, and you got any Camel's Hump? How's your eel? Anyway, you've completely forgotten that movie. Emilie was great, really good. Big Night, I'm honestly gonna go higher on Big Night too. I'm gonna go 4.5.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's really one of the standouts of the season as well.
it's so close to being perfect. It's not even funny,
Yeah.
Lady Hawk was,
Oh yeah,
it's good.
that's
It's
always solid.
serviceable, rewatchable. Shanghai Noon, we both scored lower than Rush Hour, which I
Yeah.
kind of expected. And then, of course, Planet of the Apes, Train Spotting, both big numbers.
Essential
Yeah,
viewing.
yeah. You gave Planet of the Apes 4.5. I gave it 4, etc.
Then we get to these
Before,
last three here, and I think they were three of the best of the season. Of course, your
yeah,
mileage may vary, but I think we both agree on Stalag 17 and on the waterfront being some of the best of season 2.
well, you gave Stalag a 3.5.
Yeah, I still think it's one of the better movies we've reviewed of the season, though.
Nice, okay.
Stands
I
out.
gave it a 4. Waterfront's a 4.5.
Yeah,
That's really
that's
obvious.
just such an all
And
timer. And then,
and
as
I
I
just
mentioned last time, Before Midnight's one of my favorite movies. Period. So,
yeah, I to me it was weird to watch 5 hours of film just to end it with watching two people argue for 30 minutes, where it was just like, anyway,
yeah. Well, they're not
it
Jack
just
and
wasn't for me.
Rose
Yeah, it
from
just wasn't for
Titanic,
me.
you know.
No, I hear you. That's true. Well, and there was plenty of room on that freaking thing. But anyway,
Next
so
week,
that
Titanic and Jerry Maguire. We already did Jerry Maguire.
so that brings us full circle. Wow, 30 minutes. Yeah, that did it. So that brings us full circle to season 3.
Yeah.
Episode 2, which is Victor Victoria.
And always. And it's, we finished one trilogy last season, the Befores, but we only started this Luce Blake Edwards trilogy, and we didn't cap it off. And I was kind of surprised that we didn't squeeze Victor Victoria into season 2. So figured we had to start season 3 with it.
Makes sense.
And then the other movie is Always. So which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's get the pain out of the way and let's do Always first.
Okay. So let's see. In this,
do you want me to read the
well, here's my little setup for it here. So, Always is the big budget adaptation of a Quantum Leap that we never knew we didn't need. And strangely enough, they were already making a movie out of Quantum Leap when it was still on the air. And it was called Always. I just didn't know where Ziggy was.
Oh, Ziggy. Oh, I see.
So what is Always from 1989?
So 1989, Always, PG, 2 hours and 2 minutes. The spirit of a released deceased. Oh, my God. All right. 1, 2, 3. Always, 1989, PG, 2 hours and 2 minutes. The spirit of a recently deceased expert pilot mentors a newer pilot while watching him fall in love with the girlfriend that he left behind. This is directed by Steven motherfucking Spielberg. Its writers are Jerry Belson, Dalton Trumbo, and Frederick Houslett Brennan. I'm assuming Trumbo because of the remake of a guy named Joe, which we'll get into. It stars Dreyfuss, Holly Hunter, and Brad Johnson, along with John Goodman. Let's see. Let me get its storyline here. Pete Sandrich and buddy Al Yaki are daredevil aerial forest fire fighters. Pete finds true love with Dorinda but won't give up the job. When he takes one too many risks, Dorinda faces deep grief and cannot easily put her life back together. What a terrible storyline.
Yeah, it's your basic supernatural romance, you know.
So basically it's about three people in particular. A girl who's an air traffic controller and kind of a pilot, and then these other two guys, these buddies who are pilots, and they own planes, and they fight fires. They, dump water and fire retardant on forest fires, and it's all kind of presented as this really macho sort of heroic thing to do, which it heroic for sure. But anyways, so he Dreyfuss's character ends up dying, and
As you do
when you do something stupid, like, for some reason continue to run runs when you're running out of gas. And so Goodman ends up running this school that he was trying to get his buddy Richard Dreyfuss to do, because Richard is a daredevil and was going to get himself killed, which he did. And Dreyfuss goes to heaven and gets sent back to Earth to help this guy who is a fucking, what is he, like a balloon? He's a happy birthday singing birthday guy who delivers them by plane to remote locations, I guess. And he gets there and he falls in love with this idea of being a firefighter pilot like the rest of them. And he also falls in love with Dorinda, who's Holly Hunter. And so Dreyfuss is sent back to help him, to be his inspiration, I guess, and to help him through to guide him through his training with John Goodman's special flight school. The fucking the story's all over the place, even as I'm trying to tell it.
It's complicated, even though it's very simple.
It's simple, yeah. It's simple. It's basically a couple pilots, one dies, the other one's trying to mentor a new pilot through a thing where his pilot buddy is now the commandant of the school where the new guy that he's mentoring is going through. Mm-hmm. It honestly is the plot of some bad 80s teen sex comedy in a way. Like a Heavenly Kid or a thing like that type of deal. You know what I mean?
And it's kind of the only trivia I have for the movie. It leans into this a bit. Both this and the other movie we're talking about are remakes or adaptations of something older. And in this case, with this movie, they're adapting a movie that originally took place during like World War II, I think.
Yep.
Well, doesn't that make the context of everything make a little more sense? You remove the war from it, and they're trying to put all this modern day stuff in place, and it's kind of like,
and they're still flying WW2 type planes.
Yeah,
they're flying these WW2 type looking planes, which is the Douglas A2, the A226, and another. They were a little more forward than that, but still kind of looking that way, and yeah. So yeah, it's based on, like you said, a guy named Joe, which starred Spencer Tracy, Irene Dunn. They call it Supernatural Fantasy from 1943. Also 2 hours, weirdly.
It probably makes more sense in its context. And so apparently, I guess another trivia piece I remember now is when they were making Jaws, Richard Dreyfuss and Steven Spielberg would quote that original movie to each other on that set and talk about, it would be great if we could remake that someday. Well, I guess the opportunity finally clicked after many years of different actors being up for the part. And maybe it was, I'm guessing, but maybe it was one of those circumstances where, hey, your schedule's open, mine's open, the project's here, let's do it.
Well, they originally wanted, so there's a character named Hap, who is like basically God or an angel. And that's played by Audrey Hepburn. And it's her last role. She dies soon after this. But she was not the original person they wanted for the film. They wanted Sean Connery. And and it's another one of those contract things where it's like, Connery's tied up for the next 4 months. Who do you want to get? And Spielberg's like, can we get Hepburn? And Hepburn had written some thing saying, I'd love to work with Spielberg, please. And so they paid her $1 million, and she donated all of her funds to UNICEF. And I also read that they care, because she wears all that white, she's just in this pristine white throughout the movie, that that people carried her on like a cot, like carried her on a platform to get her to where she needed to be in the fire situations, because they didn't want her costume smudged with any kind of black stuff, which also relays into the film when Holly Hunter sees the box opening up and goes, "Girl clothes," and they start to go, "Can we help you?" And she goes, "Get away from it! Don't touch it!" She's very adamant that they don't get anywhere near the film. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting duality. So anyways, always.
That has an Entourage connection.
Does it?
Yeah, the leader of the firefighters. I can't remember his name, but he's the stunt coordinator who's helping Vince be Aquaman and some other parts later on throughout the series, because that's what that guy really does for a living. And when I
Interesting.
saw his name in the end credits, I was like, hey, that's right, that was that guy. He was one of the smoke jumpers, strangely enough. Mm-hmm.
So it's so you have that opening. So the movie opens on that whole long sequence of them fighting a fire, and like it starts with the two guys on the boat fishing, and here comes the plane, and obviously the
Oh God, I
plane's
forgot about
landing on the on the water to soak up water so it can take off, and it damn near runs the poor guys on the boat over. And all I could think of was Maverick. Like
that.
all I
Got
could.
Top Gun all over it, and it's not to its advantage.
It's not to its advantage at all,
We're only
man.
a few years removed, and yet it's like there's just hints of it all over the place. Yeah.
Maverick. Anyway, um, so yeah, so we do that, and then we go from that to. Hang on, let me see here. Yeah, where'd you get that oil on your face? And he just keeps touching his face and putting oil on it, which is such like a 1930s sort of slapstick
Right.
thing to do.
Yeah.
So we're getting Top Gun, but we're getting animal crackers at the same
Yeah.
time.
And it's not top secret, people. But it is
No,
funny because our other movie is set in the 30s. So they're both pulling from a different time period, but they're doing different things with it. Mhm.
Top Gun's 86. This is 89. So 3 years later, they're sort of trying to build upon this weird sort of pilot. I don't know,
I'm
aesthetic.
glad you
Anyway,
noticed that. Yeah.
um, but it opens like a classic Spielberg movie. It sets it up. It's exciting. The tone and the pacing is solid.
There's some moments that are
You know,
Spielbergian, yes.
oh, very much so. One of my favorites is where the camera seat tilts to put Goodman in the frame, and then he sits down, and then it cuts to him sitting down. He drops out of frame, and it cuts to him sitting down. And it's like, oh man, that's so Spielberg. Like the movie. The movie reminds me of an engine that won't start. It keeps going. It keeps going.
Yeah, the first half hour of the movie is what interminable. Is that the word? It's just
It's rough.
so
It's
bad.
rough.
It's
It's
like
rough.
Teflon to my mind. It just slides off. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you finally get about 45 minutes into the movie, kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
slasher movie where here's one mini movie, oh no, and now the movie proper can begin when
Right.
Richard Dreyfuss is a ghost. And then from there on out it's just cute. It's
Yeah.
not as it's not as like what the fuck was going on in that first half hour that's just dragging, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, she actually says the movie's title at one point.
And
She
we have
actually
our
says, yeah, she actually says always, which is very rare in a movie. The haircut they put her in is fucking atrocious. Um, why suddenly
1989.
why suddenly you have a full band at a fire base who's able to play covers is completely
And this is like the real
beyond me.
end of the 80s too. December 22nd, 89. It doesn't get much more end of the 80s than this.
There's a very nice oneer. He does a very nice oneer during the dance scene that lasts a good 4 or 5 minutes. It's subtle. He doesn't draw attention to it. And this is why I love him so much. This is why Spielberg's my favorite. It's like you'd see that same thing in 1917. You go, oh, did you see that? Or in La La Land, you go, wow, did you see that oneer? And with Spielberg, it's like, it's just part of the many, many things that he's doing. Because nowhere in this film, as bad as it is it due to a lack of well-made shots or cinematography. It's all script and just fucking bad story.
Yes.
It's just that's what it's lacking all the way through. It's the worst, probably the worst script he's ever picked up to actually make.
It's still a bad movie after all this time,
Mm-hmm.
but now we look at it and go, that is still Spielberg in the 80s.
Yep.
It is the last of Spielberg in the 80s, as he would make another atrocious movie right after this called Hook, which I could argue is worse
Oh,
than this
dude.
movie.
The new generations do not fucking agree with either of us on
That's
that movie.
fine.
They fucking love it.
But
They love
those
it.
new generations probably also agree that then he makes his masterpiece, the movie after Hook, Jurassic Park. So, fucking A. He
Perfect.
just
Yep.
had to switch a little. It's weird where 1941 is what, 79? And so
Yeah.
we get this 10-year stretch where he has nothing but these blockbusters in the middle. But it's
Huge.
bookended with not Raiders and Last Crusade. It's actually bookended with 1941 and Always. Flying and flying. But I would argue that Always is probably a better movie than 1941.
By leaps and bounds.
Mm-hmm.
Just from again him learning to compose shots, move people within frame, do different things,
Mm-hmm.
cutting within the camera. Yeah, I mean, this is also classic Goodman on drugs, where he's light on his feet and he's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is my favorite type of Goodman.
It's a
You
very
know,
weird
it's
follow-up to Raising Arizona.
mm-hmm. The fire in the kitchen scene is where it starts to kind of lose its mind and me. And I keep going back to that terrible haircut they put on Holly Hunter.
Both movies have vortexes in them where you'll drift off.
And also this film is so fucking melodramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she rides her bicycle out to stop him on the runway from taking off and all that, it's like, oh, this is just
It's
just
all
so
it's
this would have
all
worked in the 40s, but it's
yes,
not going to work for an
right.
80s audience.
It's all grand gestures and sentimentality, but there's nothing to the characters to make you care enough, so it's all kind of just basic.
Yep.
It's just
Yep.
meant to be mildly
Yep.
manipulative, but but then when you compare this movie to a lot of the movies he made after, this is still a bad movie, but this is probably like 7th or 8th from the bottom, in my opinion. Because we forget about other movies and these are still watchable, I'd say. Bridge of Spies. I thought this was better.
Oh yeah.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I thought this was better.
Yeah, okay, about the same level for me.
War of the Worlds. This is way better. AI. This is better. The before mentioned Hook. This is a lot better. 1941. This is better. And then, of course, the one I think is the one, his worst movie, because everybody's got to have a worst movie. Well, that's The Terminal.
No.
Oh,
this is way worse than The Terminal.
No, I think this is a lot better than The Terminal.
No,
but you might have to make me watch
sir.
that again, but then you have to watch it again, and then who knows? Maybe I'll have a change of heart. But
The Terminal is one of my favorite things about Spielberg, where you listen to the premise and you go, that sounds fucking stupid, and then within 20 minutes you're going, oh, there's a lot of heart and character to this. I see what he's doing, and it's a completely different thing.
Well,
that's one of my
there is
favorite things
something I
about
missed.
Spielberg.
Because I appreciate
crazy.
this movie more now than then, but I realize this is just a glossed up, Hallmark movie. That's all it's supposed to be, though. It's a remake of a movie from the 40s that was sentimental, I'm sure. So,
I love the fact that he used rear projection for a lot of the flying, and a lot of it. Like he used some old school analog sort of techniques to make a lot of these effects happen, which I really really loved.
It's watchable. But you know what's probably more watchable? A movie that came out the very next year called Ghost.
Yeah.
Kind of blew this premise out of the water, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. What other? I've got notes for days.
Oh, did you know that Spielberg used the same editor on almost every movie he's ever made?
Yeah, I've heard that actually. He works with the same people quite a bit, from what I understand. the scenes with the pretty guy are so bland, man. That guy, I don't know what that guy's name is, but he can't act for shit. Let me look up his name here. Hang on. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, he was born here in Tucson, apparently.
Oh, that's hilarious. Brad Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The dude, I mean, he's, good luck being a model, but as an actor, he's just not hitting it.
Yeah. So I just feel like it was look, we got to make this movie now. This is the movie that we have the opportunity to make. This is one that was on the docket. I'm sure filmmakers like Spielberg probably have movies that they've been trying to make for years. And when the time comes, you do it and you get the cast that is available at the time. And that's what happened, I think.
Look, here's the thing. It's a gorgeous movie. It's
the copy I watched, I wouldn't know.
No, I
did see it in the theater, but I can't really remember. It was so long ago.
But it looks great. It's doing a lot of great things. It's moving. It's doing these other things. It's got a Goonies sort of it reminds me of Ridley Scott, or not Ridley Scott. I'm sorry, but it reminds me of James Cameron at the beginning of The Abyss, where I'm introducing all my characters and having the song, the extended director's cut.
Same DP as The Abyss, I think.
Well, that's crazy because it's the same sort of plot structure where I'm having the song and showing how my characters are all working together as a team and mishmashing, and they both do that same thing where you see Holly Hunter, she is on the call and she puts her gum on the thermos, and then hey man, don't run in there with the thing, and the shoot, swoop in and save the fire and all that. That whole sequence,
technically it's good, but where's the
it's so by the numbers. It's so by the numbers, and it's so introduce. All that quick patter back and forth is introducing you to the characters, and
well, what I was trying to say in a succinct way is, we used to say it was the worst movie he ever made, but in comparison to everything else, it's not anywhere close to the worst movie he made.
We'll see. We've got some others we'll watch, but to me, it
lacks. I listed at least a half dozen right there that I think this is better than. So
it lacks the thread that ties everything together. When it should be smooth, it feels forced. When it's forced, it feels very rocky. Mm-hmm. It's at no time does Dreyfuss ever complain about being dead or suddenly he's just getting a haircut from this woman and then going back down, and then suddenly he complains because he can't, she's falling in love with somebody else and he keeps telling her, like, don't forget you're always my girl. Like, don't you dare have a life after I'm dead.
Mm-hmm. It's 40s values.
Very weird. Yeah, it's very 40s values for sure, I guess.
It's just a programmer. It's just supernatural romance, and yet you feel like they were trying to go for the Oscar, right? Why else do you release this at the end of December? And you have your big speeches, and it just didn't win anything.
It feels like he learned to shoot all this stuff. It feels like almost like I'm going to make a movie and practice for all the World War II stuff I'm going to do later, all this crazy other stuff that he did that incorporated a lot of these shots and looks.
It makes sense that
Saving Private Ryan.
He kept trying until he made that movie correctly, right? He tried with 1941.
Kept trying until he got to Ryan.
He tried always, and then when he got to Ryan, he finally figured out how to make that movie. It's like the guy in Amelie painting the same picture every year. And that face keeps fucking with him. And then he finally got it. It took him like at least 3, right? Unless there's another one that I'm forgetting that goes in there. But then,
kept trying till he got to Ryan.
Yeah, hadn't thought of that, but it makes sense.
There's a weird sort of male arrogance at the end where he's like, "I allow you to be free. I remove myself from your heart," and it's just like,
well, where are the other ghosts?
Yeah. What the fuck?
You're the only one down here trying to affect people's lives. Doesn't everybody have one? Why can't you see them? You saw that guy when he died for a second. The rules are more confusing than Barbie.
Yeah.
And then he breaks the fourth wall at the end as he.
Well, hey, away. You know what? At least they didn't go back and forth to fucking Barbie Land 9,000 times.
I almost feel like they
Anyway.
did, though.
Anyway.
Now, what are you going to watch next? Once around? Shit.
Don't tempt me. What do you give it?
And I give it a 2 for what it is. You know, you can't come down too harshly on this. You can easily be cynical and go a half. And it's like, yeah, but what it's trying to be, it's succeeding. It's just not doing anything more than that.
Right. Yeah. Here's the deal. It's like watching a really bad... It's like watching a Trauma picture or a Corman picture that has the best production value, cameras and lenses and cinematographer. It's just a terrible fucking story that doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't match up and suddenly is this and that. So it's a 2.
Mm-hmm.
I have to give it a 2 just based on all the production value, sound, the effort put into it, and it looks fucking great. Period. But I can't give it a 2.5 because it's a terrible movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it doesn't make any sense. It's insane. It's obvious that Dreyfuss and Spielberg and somebody else got a hold of this and it became this whole wild thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these weird tight set pieces where they're having these back and forths and this, you know, this thing with the dress and all of these weird moments that are so artificial.
Well, Spielberg was allowed to be kind of make an understated movie at that point. He had done so many huge ones that I'm just like, okay, it seemed like let's just make something simple.
Didn't click. Yeah, it just didn't click. Mm-hmm. Nothing clicked. It was just
practice. It's a practice movie.
Yeah, very much so.
Somebody out there's going, "This is my favorite movie. How dare you?"
Hey, look, I'm not yucking anybody's yum on this show, and I would say, even as a bad Spielberg movie, this is this is Spielberg's worst movie, it's still better than so much other stuff. It's not even funny.
Spielberg, like I was saying,
you'll find some things in this that you'll go like. There's some lighting things that he does. There's a moment where the two main characters are holding each other and there's light coming through from the bottom and it's golden and beautiful and it's kind of warming right in the chest area, so it's like this like golden hearts melting together in a lighting scenario. I'm like, Jesus,
ET type,
it's really well done.
In this. Once you get to Hook and Jurassic Park, it's 90s Spielberg, but here it's still like one more touch of 80s Spielberg. It feels really more in line with the movies he made in that decade, I think. At the time, I was like, whatever. And now I'm like, well, I still am kind of like, whatever, but at least I understand the movie a little bit more. You can't have a life experience at age 15 that's going to make any sense to watching a movie like that at that point, you know. It's funny because that movie, Always, and the other two films of the loose trilogy of the movie we're about to talk about, 10 and SOB, they all had elements that were from another time period. Like the humor in 10 and SOB was like somebody making a movie about 60s comedy, but doing it in the 80s. And it's like, what? And then Always is kind of like, well, I'm going to make this movie from the 40s, but do it in the 80s. And you're like, what? But then when you make Victor Victoria in the early 80s and you set it in the 30s, you go, now you're being subversive. You're doing a movie
now you
that
have
feels like it could have come out back then, but they wouldn't make a movie like this back then. To where Robert Preston, before I get ahead of myself, almost feels like Groucho Marx, as they mention at one point in the movie itself. But what is Victor Victoria?
Victor Victoria, let's see here. Victor Victoria, 1982, PG, 2 hours and 14 minutes. Directed by Blake Edwards. Yeah, surprisingly. Directed by Blake, written by Blake Edwards, Hans Holmberg, and Reinhold Schunzel. Stars Julie Andrews, James Garner, Robert Preston, along with Leslie Ann Warren, I believe, and Alex, the boxer.
Webster's dad.
Guy. Webster's dad, yeah.
He's also in Porky's, yeah.
A struggling female soprano in 1934, Paris finally finds work after posing as a female impersonator. but it complicates her personal life when a visiting Chicago gangster finds himself inexplicably attracted to the seemingly male performer. So that's your log line. Your storyline is, in 1934 Paris, this is a long one, geez, trained coloratura soprano Victoria Grant, played by Dame Julia Andrews, a native Brit, can't get a job as a singer and is having trouble making ends meet. She doesn't even have enough money for the basics of food and shelter. Gay cabaret singer Carol Todd, Robert Preston, may befall the same fate as Victoria, as he was just fired from his singing gig at a second-rate club named Chez Louis. To solve their problems, Toddy comes up with what he considers to be an inspired idea. With Toddy as her manager, Victoria, pretending to be a man, gets a job singing as a female impersonator. If they pull the scheme off, Toddy vows Victoria as her male alter ego will be the toast of Paris and as such be extremely wealthy. That alter ego, they decide, is Polish Count Victor Grazinski, Toddy's ex-lover who was disowned by his family when they found out he was gay. The Count auditions for the city's leading agent, Andre Cassell, played by John Rhys-Davies, who, impressed, gets him a gig performing in the city's best nightclubs. In the audience on the successful opening night is Chicago, Illinois nightclub owner and businessman King Marchand, played by James Garner, a macho male who falls in love with the woman he sees on stage, which doesn't sit well with his current girlfriend, Norma Casti, played by Leslie Ann Warren. King is shocked to learn that that woman is a man named Count Krasinski. While King tries to reconcile his romantic feelings for Victoria, in truth, King doesn't truly believe the Count is a man. His business associates won't tolerate his change in sexual orientation. Although feeling emancipated, being treated as a man, Victoria, as herself, in turn, falls in love with King. What a goofy sentence. To pursue something with him as a woman would mean giving up this lucrative career, but the career may also come to an end in a jail term if the authorities find out that Victoria and Toddy have committed fraud in this impersonation. Huggo, on IMDb, that's a long storyline.
It's like, oh yeah, that does conveniently wrap up there at the end. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Trivia, as far as the research I did on this, the director of photography, the DP, has made some other movies of note. Phase 4, the killer ant movie from the 70s that was featured on a KTMA episode of Mr. Science Theater, just because it happened to be in the library, not because it's a bad movie. It's actually an interesting movie. It's just bizarre. Tommy, the Who movie.
Really?
You know, that crazy one with Anne Margaret and Oliver Reed, I think it is.
Yeah.
But the movie that this shares the same DP with that surprised me the most was Sorcerer. The same person who shot Sorcerer shot Victor Victoria. What a trip.
You're kidding me.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Because I thought,
wow.
I'm sitting there watching this and I'm thinking, okay, who did this? Because they obviously did some other stuff, right? Because they got a good command of everything. Yeah. And then to see that, it was like, I kind of believe it makes sense. So, here's a trivia though. Yeah.
Here's a couple things. So, the film was planned as early as 1978. Which is I think 5 years before.
So it predates the other two.
And it was guess who was going to play the role of Toddy? Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers.
Yeah. Now so Preston stepped in after Sellers died. Yeah, that's a totally different movie.
And then you get the private detective who feels like a Peter Sellers type character towards the last half hour when the movie just won't end. You know.
Mm-hmm. And apparently the costume worn by Andrews and the shady dame from Seville is the same costume that Preston wears later. It was made for him, and they just repurposed it for her with a series of hooks.
Well, that's perfect.
That's fucking hilarious, dude. That's so hilarious.
That's why it sells so well.
That's why this movie kind of is about, is this whole idea of just like sort of like, it's not about gender. It's about being able to swap back and forth and look like one thing or the other to convince you where you maybe can't tell. right? That's what the whole thing. It's not. I don't know. It's. I love this movie. I've enjoyed it
Mm-hmm.
since I saw it back in my 20s. It's always been a favorite of mine.
Oh,
I think
I
it's.
saw it when I was a little kid. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it until I want to say maybe I caught it on PBS, maybe in my teens,
Oh,
maybe. But I think when I really saw it was later. I was dating my wife, and it was one of her mother's favorite movies, and we watched it all together. I thought that was a really good one.
well, it makes sense. It's like always you watch that when you're young, you're not going to get a bunch of it. I'm seeing Victor Victoria when I was 9, and being
Mm-hmm.
just especially a straight guy, I was just kind of like, what? Like I got the surface
What?
level, but a
Yep.
bunch of it's go over my head. Where I'm sure a bunch of people are like, I
Exactly.
feel seen. But
Yeah.
you know, I've always enjoyed it. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to say this comes up on like a PBS rotation with La Koja Fall, that
Oh,
type of thing, where they go back to back, that type of
saw that
thing.
as a
But
little kid too. Yeah, because it was a
yeah,
cable, early cable. Yeah.
both great movies. I mean, fantastic, and what a great way to kind of get yourself introduced and exposed to in a non aggressive way about those sort of lifestyles, or
Hmm.
be just to peek behind the curtain towards them.
They do kind of a
Like,
perfect tightrope walk for the whole movie, you know,
mhm,
and that
yeah. Wait,
because if you
so
go, think about it too much, the story is like, what? It's too convenient, but it's like, no, they're doing that tightrope walk of it, you know.
yeah. So my notes. So so you can tell it's on a soundstage. Like it feels like you're watching a play or a musical. That's really what it feels like for the most part. It feels
Mhm.
like Blake Edwards really finally created an actual musical where he had music all the way through. He had numbers. He was sort of leaning towards it in SOB, where he's like, I want to do
Mhm.
this big, Polly Wiley doodle all the bullshit thing with my
Mhm.
wife. But then he truly transformed it in Victor Victoria into an entire piece, which was
Mhm.
really impressive.
This is the best of
Um,
10 and SOB distilled into one
it
movie.
really is. Robert Preston is the best in this. His lines, he maybe have a bit better lines in SOB, but he gets to cut loose in this one quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
This is what, 2 years after Lacoge and Lacoge 2, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Lacoge is 80, and this is what, 83,
This is 82. It feels like
82. So yeah, it's
83,
2
but
years
it's still
after.
in that
Yeah.
82 time.
Hmm.
The beginning of the magic time, as you were talking about earlier.
So good. I love the waiter in this so much.
That's
Like,
got to be an influence on It's Always Sunny.
dude, I mean, that guy made the most out of a part. Like, he
Yeah.
took a part where he was just the waiter. Like that, when he's pouring that wine and she just takes the glass away and he's still pouring, that look that he just looks forward like, Jesus, dear Lord, help me, is so good. The whole roach scene, it's really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of great
Um,
set pieces. The guy
mhm,
standing on his not on his head, but standing on the
mhm.
wine bottle, and then she explodes the bottle,
Yeah, maybe the way you're eating, your jaw is getting tired, is what he tells her.
and
Because she's just eating everything. And fucking Robert Preston's, they didn't shoot a real horse, just a costume with two waiters in it. That's just great stuff.
yeah, the
It
deadpan
reminds
like
it.
Groucho. It's almost like a Marx
Yeah,
Brothers movie that
almost
didn't
like a
happen.
Marx Brothers routine. Yes, exactly, exactly. It reminds me of that line that he had, that those quick pace lines that he had in SOB.
Mm-hmm.
Where you look like 180 pounds of condemned veal. You know,
It's
so
like
good.
they take that madcap energy of a 30s movie and
Hmm.
somehow put it out in 82, and they got it. They got the energy right. And yet it's all subversive because like I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
they just weren't able to make a movie
Hmm.
about that subject matter in the 30s even if somebody wanted to. Nobody was given the
Yeah.
funding for that. And now in the 80s,
It,
it's like now we can make that movie about that time period and somehow capture 50 years earlier. It's
mhm.
crazy.
How long have you been a homosexual? How long have you been a soprano? You know, I love it. Um, so Toddy comes up with the illusion of all illusions: a woman impersonating a man who is impersonating a woman.
Hmm.
It's kind of brilliant. Like, it's because who's going to believe it one way or the other? No matter which way you fall,
Yeah.
you've got plenty of room to catch yourself, you know.
That's where we go into that, like the producers or something, where it hits this like classic level with that, you know.
But then the movie begins to bring in new characters and great actors. You get John Rhys Davies shows up.
The cast is amazing.
Then you get Alex Karras and James Garner showing up. You know, it doesn't stop. Leslie Ann Warren's voice, good God.
I
mean, can you imagine hearing that constantly? Oh,
that's why it's 2 hours and 14 minutes.
Mm-hmm. If it was me, I would have cut a couple of tunes, maybe one or two. I would have tried to get it under 155,
right,
somewhere in there. It's just one number too long. It's about 1 6 or 7 minute musical number too long, in my opinion. And I can't really decide. They're all good. I'm not complaining about them. But I wonder if there's one that can be cut. Do we need the Leslie Ann Warren number?
That was the one that I was thinking, you know. But it benefits the movie.
Do we need the male-female dance? Maybe we get rid of that.
Well, it's more like
that dance where they're cutting back and forth with the fans from
but
being
even that
maybe we get rid of that.
It's atmospheric. It's interesting how it's like deleted scenes, but they were all good. We just cut them out for pacing purposes. We didn't cut them out because they were shitty. It's just like, no, the movie's 2 hours and 14 minutes. But yet it feels like it goes by quicker than always at 2 hours and 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That first 45 minutes of that movie, cheesy peasy.
No, it's more like, for me, it's the first 10 are great, and then the next 25 are so brutal. And then once John Goodman finds her at the fucking airport and drags her away from it, it starts to get a little bit better. But even then, it doesn't get.
It's like Jersey Girl, but we got to see the whole
like Jersey Girl,
that
very much so.
Down, right? Oh, weird. But anyways, the movie that I enjoyed more this week, Victor Victoria.
Shame is an unhappy emotion invented by pietists in order to exploit the human race.
Who said that?
Who said that?
I said that. You know, very much like Christmas, we just can't stay away from France here on Talking Pondo. It's the movie's either about Christmas as a scene of Christmas, or people are in France. And so here we are. When you find that Christmas in France movie, well, it was snowing in Victor Victoria, so we got pretty close there. You could make a playlist, Talking France. It's got to be at least a half dozen movies by now. Christmas, probably 12.
Yeah.
And the argument, it's not a Christmas movie. It just has a scene set at Christmas. But it's funny because you could, Night of the Comet, Stalag 17, he's running around in the Santa suit and then they got a Christmas tree. I don't know anymore. But my new favorite, the Bonnie Bedelia Christmas double feature of Heart Like a Wheel and Die Hard. Because I like a good fucked up movie on Christmas. The more morbid it is, the better Christmas has to fight to give it that wholesome feel. And somehow Christmas always wins. So whatever weird movie you watch on Christmas, and some of those Hallmark movies are pretty dark anyway. But anyways, Victor Victoria.
No, it's good.
It's not set at Christmas.
I was looking up a couple of more pieces of trivia here, and apparently Robert Preston did the final musical number in one take.
Wow.
Which explains why he's so out of breath and stressed and sweating profusely during the second half of it.
That gives it that realness.
And then Blake Edwards admitted that he chickened out and added the scene in which James Garner discovers that Julie Andrews is a woman, because originally he was supposed to fall in love with Victoria before he was sure about her gender. Hence his line about, I don't care if you are a man, before he kisses her.
No, he snuck into the bathroom what would you call problematic, but I call sitcom
Yeah.
universe.
Yes.
You can't judge these characters as being perverts because they're doing a scene like that in a movie, because that doesn't correspond with anything else in the movie. I don't know. I think people overthink that stuff sometimes. I think
it's the same reason that Planet of the Apes gets it's the same reason that Planet of the Apes gets a G rating while it still has bare butts and crotches flying over your face. It's because there's nothing sexual about it. There's
he was in there peeping, so he knew.
He was in there peeping and creeping.
Yeah. And he got away with it too. It's never mentioned.
That's right. When she's in the bathtub. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
He was peeping and creeping. James Garner, you disgusting pig.
If you want to attach that type of realness to the movie, everything starts to melt away. This exists in that sitcom universe where that type of stuff is just a device to move the story forward. It's not intended to make the character look like a creep. That's what I think. Because otherwise it changes the tone considerably of the movie.
I'm a weirdo.
If anymore, we have to pay ASCAP BMI.
Damn, what am I doing here? What do you give it?
I give it a 3.
Yeah, I'll give it a 3.
Yeah,
works for me. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to give it a 3.5. I think it's a little better than that, and I think it's probably for me. If you said which Blake Edwards movie would you like to watch, and you showed me the Pink Panther and 10 and SOB and this one, I would probably say this one every step of the way.
So next week when we watch the 4th movie, The Man Who Loved Women. No, I'm not going to make you watch that. You almost could, because it's got Julie Andrews in it yet again.
Yep.
And then I think after that, it's like with Blind Date with Bruce Willis.
And then fucking Deep. What's the other one?
Switch.
Skin Deep.
Oh, yeah.
Switch. Jimmy Smits.
Jimmy Smits. I did it just so I could say the Switch Jimmy Smits.
All right. So what do you got for me next week?
Well, so starting the season off there. Well, before I throw the movie for you for next week, I would say, looking back on season 2, just off the top of my head, be sure to watch Dinner in America. And be sure to watch Ghost Dog.
For sure.
Those were like the 2 new discoveries for me anyway.
I completely agree with you.
Any other highlights from season 2 that I mean, there's other great movies in there, but I'm not going to recount everything. So.
I think I've been recommending Ghost Dog and definitely Dinner in America to people. Like, have you seen Dinner in America? It's going to challenge you. Watch Dinner in America. It's really good.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would really super recommend would be Big Night.
Oh,
I think that's a really good movie. I would totally recommend that you watch Big Night. Mm-hmm. Watch it. You'll love it. You really will enjoy that movie. Again, we talk about it in the film. The only thing that doesn't make it a 5-star movie is that I'm completely disappointed that Stanley Tucci's character is a 2-timer. Other than that, the fucker be 5-star. I was just and a few other things, but we're like, oh, dude, come on, man, really?
Going into it again, who knows? No, and now knowing that,
I
might read the movie different. I might like it even
totally,
because I'm not expecting that character to be something that he's not.
It's just it's good. It's well done. Anyway, so that would be the other movie I'd say to check out.
Nice.
But for next week, what do you got for me?
How do you go from Always to Hook to Jurassic Park?
I don't know.
That's wild, right? And then you're off into the fucking races again. It's crazy. And then, of course, there was Ghost that inspired the love song of William H. Shaw. I guess there's little pieces of Always in that movie too. It's just funny how that shit just happens. But my choice for next week has changed from what it was because I had to watch a movie called Always. Now, the movie that I'm choosing this week would have come up this season at some point. It just made more sense for it to enter the discussion a little earlier. And now, Between Always and the movie I'm about to give you, I think they are the two best cases that prove that even though Steven Spielberg had a lot of input and he was the producer on Poltergeist, that he did not direct the film. And the two movies that prove that the most, I think, are Always from 1989, sitting side by side with 1981's The Funhouse.
The Funhouse?
Yeah, the Tobe Hooper movie that he made for Universal in 81. So that'll be a compare contrast. We don't need to watch Poltergeist again. We've seen that 10 billion times. But I figured, people like to say that Spielberg directed Poltergeist, and we know that's just not true. He had a lot of input on it. But I think once you see The Funhouse with Always so fresh in your head, another movie that doesn't feel anything like Poltergeist, maybe it all starts to come more into focus.
Okay. So how in D&D, I don't know, I don't think you played long enough, but eventually in D&D, they came up with the option of a counter spell, which was the ability to keep a spell that a evil wizard was casting from actually being cast by reversing the magic upon that person. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you the reverse of The Funhouse, which is a movie I know you haven't seen before.
Oh, more blind pick.
And it's time for you to see, and it's called Step Brothers.
Oh, okay. Well, I was curious because people say it's really funny. So
in my opinion, you are either going to come to me and want to kill me for making me watch this movie, or you're going to be like, this is fucking hilarious. Thank you so much for showing me the light. So we'll see.
It's very possible that the thematic similarities between the two films we'll discover could be pretty fun too. So.
The Funhouse and Step Brothers is probably the oddest pairing I've seen in a while. So
and yet it's already starting to make sense to me. So
right, I'm loving it already.
The movie that I would have given you instead of The Funhouse, we will get to that in a few weeks.
Right on. And the movie that I would have given you instead of Step Brothers, we'll get to that in a few weeks.
Wouldn't that be funny if they end up on the same episode?
All right. Until then, Funhouse, Step Brothers.
Oh, shit. I don't think I got a quote from either movie.
You got no quote? You got no quote from either movie?
I watched almost 5 hours of movies.
My God. All right. Are you sure? You don't want to look at anything real quick?
Oh, boy. This was a long one today, too.
All right. Well, I guess we both just fail at our quotes.
Cockroach.
What did I have? Maybe the way you're eating, your jaw is getting tired. Mm-hmm. They didn't shoot a real horse, just a costume with two waiters in it.
Right. And even though I'm dead, I'm still possessive over you. Is that the line? Where are the other ghosts?
Perfect. All right. Till next week.
Later.
Don't miss an episode. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, like us on YouTube, or give us a 5-star rating on the podcast app of your choice.